Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Neighbor won't stay out of our yard and lets his dog use it as a bathroom. After that, am I the jerk for giving my dad his money back in front of his other kids and telling him he was no longer welcome at my graduation? And after that, deny my employee claim? I'll withdraw everything from your company and watch you disintegrate. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to stay out of her neighbor's yard. I don't see any no trespassing signs. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Neighbor won't stay out of our yard and lets his dog use it as a bathroom. We purchased our home a couple of years ago. It's 45 years old and we have a pretty big front yard that wraps around on both sides to a backyard with woods. The neighbors on either side of us have fully fenced-in, boxed-in yards with tall wooden gates. Our yard is open, and we're currently in the process of building a fence on the sides so that our dog has a space to run free. We have a 10-month-old German Shepherd boxer mix puppy. She's sweet, picking up training, and does well outside when we take her on walks. And when she is outside, we put her in the backyard on a long, heavy-duty lead that's anchored so she can run around until this fence is complete. The neighborhood is full of dogs. Everyone seems courteous and picks up after their own, with the exception of our direct next-door neighbor. He lets his two dogs free roam. Everyone thinks it's so cute. They apparently don't believe in leashes. While I'm impressed that his dogs are so well trained, what I'm completely upset about is that he lets his two dogs come into our yard multiple times a day while he's working outside, and they use it as their toilet. He jokes with me about it, saying, "Oh, the dogs must like you guys," etc. The problem is, and I've addressed it with him directly in person and also indirectly with snide comments already, he lets them wander all over the place and they keep going to the bathroom in both our front, back, and side yards. He knows that they're doing it because he's up on his ladder trimming his trees and isn't oblivious to seeing what they're doing. His yard is immaculate with a sprinkler system and it's very, very well manicured, so I know he isn't clueless about the value of a nice space and picking up dog doo. When we walk our dog, I always pick up after her. I bring bags with us and I don't let her go in other people's yards, period. I think it's rude to assume that because someone has grass, your dog should be able to use it as a toilet. Some people won't agree, but we have taught ours to go on the road and we just pick it up afterwards. I feel like this is a common courtesy. The issue now has become that our dog will be minding her own business in the backyard and suddenly the free-roaming dogs just show up, startling her, and she gets very territorial and wants to go after them because they came into our yard ready to fight. Not only is it her nature to protect us, but she knows her property now and that this is her space they're coming into. Yesterday, our dog was barking like crazy in the entryway. She wouldn't stop and kept peeking out of the glass in the door. So I look outside and not only are there two dogs playing in our front yard with a ball, but the neighbor is out there in our yard, right smack dab in the middle, just running around and chasing them like he's at a dog park or something. A few moments later, I see that the guy across the street has let his dog out, and now he is also standing in our yard, just chatting it up and playing with all the dogs. This isn't a city park. Are you kidding me? Our front yard is probably 1/8 to 1/4 of an acre, and the back and sides are another 1/4 of an acre. It isn't hard to decipher that this is our front yard. It doesn't butt up to any other public space. It's an older cul-de-sac and we just so happen to have the broadest, widest areas of space out in front of the house, while other neighbors have larger backyards instead. The street comes to an end and our yard is there along with our driveway next to it. It's very clear that this isn't their home. So I opened the door yesterday while these jerks were hanging out in my yard, dog barking like Cujo, holding her back with her harness, and I said, "Look, you guys need to get off of our property. This isn't a park. Our dog is very territorial, and one of these days she's going to go after someone or someone's dog if you guys don't stop letting your dogs roam." They just stood there like I was the issue, just a jerk with an attitude. So my husband went outside and he chatted with them as well. Explained that she's a puppy, we are obviously building a fence, pieces of it are up. He said he's concerned that one of their dogs will get bit if they just wander into our yard because our dog will get startled and defend her territory. So what are my options here? Aside from becoming a no trespassing sign psychopath and sticking them up everywhere, what do we do? Obviously, we care about all the dogs and don't want anyone getting hurt, which is our first concern. But these people have zero care in the world about just wandering into our yard and using it as their own space. What gives? This makes me want to go look back at our camera footage to see if they've been doing this all along and nobody has said anything to them. These same men go into our neighborhood group on Facebook and regularly post about people speeding, about picking up trash and minding noise levels, etc. We don't have an HOA, so I feel we are at the mercy of these self-righteous jerks who think they own the neighborhood. Today, the dog was barking again, and lo and behold, the man and his dog are back in our yard again. Who behaves this way? Put in sprinklers, even a cheap movable one, and turn it on every time the people show up in the yard. I'm honestly annoyed for you. I would be livid. Get them charged for trespassing. Why bother saving a relationship with people who don't even respect your literal and figurative boundaries? Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you try to get them to stop or not? Please let us know. Oh, I'd know how to get him to stop all right, but trust me, you really don't want to know how. Am I the jerk for giving my dad his money back in front of his other kids and telling him he was no longer welcome at my graduation? My graduation ceremony is being held next week. My dad has given me some money in advance to pay for the party. I live mostly with my mom, but they were supposed to be hosting the event together. Dad and I have a rocky relationship. After my parents divorced when I was 4, they split custody of me, and he was able to stay a good dad. When I was 10, he met Jane. Jane had 3 kids, twins and a single kid. They got married when I was 12, but I would say even before that, I felt like he prioritized her kids over me a lot. He would cancel plans with me if they wanted to do something, and would either do the thing with them or force me to go and say it was even better than our plans, when for me it wasn't. Think going for a hike with me versus taking them to an indoor play area, or seeing a movie with me versus the kiddie park. One more example is when I was given a ticket for a concert my dad and I both love. He was supposed to buy a ticket to come with me for some father-son time, but actually spent it on his youngest stepkid who wanted their room painted. He told me at the last minute, and it hurt. There are other times stuff like this happened too. He didn't show up at the hospital when I broke my arm because one stepkid was getting their tonsils out and wanted both him and his wife there. He told my mom over the phone to tell me he was proud of me for being brave and understanding, even though I never said that. When I would bring this stuff up to tell him, he'd tell me it was natural to feel jealous of sharing his attention. That was all he would say. In 2019, he told my mom he would split the cost of a trip I wanted to go on with one of my clubs because she didn't have the money all by herself. Mom had her half saved. We told my dad he needed to pay. He said bills were tight and it was the twins' birthdays and the money needed to go on something for them. He told me we could do something as a family when the trip happened instead. I told him to forget it, that he was making it clear who was more important and I was going to stay with my mom where I actually mattered. Mom borrowed money to cover the other half of the trip. Dad told me he regretted making me feel less important and we were working on things, and then the graduation money was given about a month ago. Then a week ago, he called me and told me how one of the stepkids was being bullied, how bad of a time they're having, and with that money, they could help cheer them up for their birthday. I was upset. I hung up. Then 2 days later, I showed up at his doorstep, gave him the money back, and told him I didn't want to see him or his new family at my graduation, and that he had chosen who was more important, so he better stay out of my life. His stepkids and 2 younger biological kids were there. I didn't stick around. He called and told me we needed to talk it out like adults and that I had hurt the kids' feelings. His wife freaked out on me, so I blocked her. Am I the jerk? As a mom with kids from 2 marriages, I will say absolutely not the jerk. Your dad consistently and constantly chose everyone else above you. This is not okay. Making and breaking promises is disgusting. Saying one thing and then backing out is gross. And asking for the money back? No, just no. He is not a father, he's a spineless donor who deserves nothing from you. You needed a father, and he was absolutely not it. And I'm sorry. I want to add, OP, his behavior has nothing to do with you. You are worth everything he failed to do and more. His behavior shows the person he is, always will, and always has. Also, his reply tells a lot. They need to talk like adults because OP hurt the kid's feelings? Really? After your kid told you that he wants you out of his life and wants nothing to do with you because you prioritize your new family over the old, this is what is on your mind? This man is useless and he doesn't care. Good riddance, he's not a father. This is what I would tell him. Call him by his first name and say, there's nothing left to discuss. At every moment, you have made it abundantly clear that your stepkids will always take priority over me. Every single decision you have made since they came into your life has proven this as a fact. Because of that, I no longer want to have a relationship with you. Moving forward, I will simply tell people that my father is no longer a part of my life. I was tempted to tell people why we no longer have a relationship because I think people should see you for who you really are. But I've come to the conclusion that I need to let go of the pain and resentment entirely and move forward in my life without the burden of your pain on my conscience. So I'm letting you go. Thank you for helping to bring me into this world. That was the first and only thing you ever did for me that truly mattered. But this is the end of our journey together. I can't count on you. You're never going to make me a priority in your life, and I can't continue to be let down by you. You have a family now that I'm not part of. It's time we both accept that this is just the way things are and how they'll always be. I do apologize for confronting you in front of your kids. That was not my intention. You've been good to them, and I know if the roles were reversed, I would be upset having heard what I said. But they know that you love them, and in the end, this too shall pass. I wish we could have had what you had with them, but we don't always get what we want out of life. So be good to them and be the kind of father they deserve, not the kind of father you were to me. After sending this message, I will be blocking you on everything and asking Mom to cease all contact with you. You will not be getting any updates, nor will you be hearing from me anymore. Please do not attempt to contact me ever again. Not the jerk. Deny my employee claim? I'll withdraw everything from your company and watch you disintegrate. I have a story that started back before lockdown and just concluded a while back. Obligatory first-time poster, and English is my third language, so forgive any errors I make on my use of words. I'm a typical simple guy who likes to relax and was born with the proverbial silver spoon in my mouth. I'm the black sheep of my family and a middle child to boot, double whammy. But I at least have some brains and some luck, which I kind of use on a day-to-day basis. Due to my parents' connections, I managed to get into lucrative schools in my country, did my military service, and was promoted upward to captain, and later on was shipped off to college out of the country. I've never been too close with many people apart from my circle of friends, and I prefer it that way. After my college, I was employed in government. You guessed it, family connections. And after a few years, was able to use my name to get ahead and meet people who helped me set up several businesses in my area, a coastal city where this story happens. The money I used was generally allowances, small inheritance from my late grandma, some investments, a fund that was started when I was a baby, and money gifted to me by family, basically an attempt to not leave me broke enough to embarrass them, even though I am a simple low-maintenance fellow. My businesses are booming since the coastal area we live in attracts a lot of tourists, local and international, and of course some locals who wish to mingle with the tourists to get green cards, pen pals, spouses and such. Typical coastal city, I guess. The incident. As a proprietor of my business, I have most, if not all of my staff on salary since it's the best way for them to gain benefits and is easier for me as a business owner tax-wise. Tipping is more of a gift usually since we do not have a tipping culture. And I have my staff on comprehensive medical insurance, which has additional dental and optical on top of the national government healthcare medical scheme. We also have a mandatory legal requirement to provide employees with retirement benefits, minimum of 21 working days leave, I give 30, and my businesses offer paid overtime, unhindered medical leave for surgery and serious conditions which can be extended, as well as allowances to seek treatment such as chemo or dialysis. One of my female employees, an older lady who is brilliant and had moved up the ranks to manager and was adored by all, was booked for a hysterectomy since, as she told me, she was at risk of cervical cancer as her mother had passed from it a few years back, and since she already had 4 kids, it was the most logical step. She did her due diligence and found a private hospital which was in our system where she could have the procedure done. On the planned date, she applied for leave days, which we obviously approved since this fell under the scope of medical leave. She went on to have the procedure successfully and had a quick recovery time. The bill was to be catered for by the company insurance, and we had made sure to get all of the necessary pre-authorizations. A few months later, she came back to work looking distraught, and in all honesty, we thought that she had been told that she had gotten cancer since she had asked for a day off to go for review and tests. But what happened was much worse. She had been given a bill by the hospital since the insurance had refused to pay for it, citing that it was not in the scope of cover. We were livid since we had made sure everything was in order. I sent my accounts manager to go have a talk with the insurance people as we tried to calm her down. The manager came back super angry and told me that basically after showing them the evidence, the insurance people just told him to buzz off. I decided to personally go visit that office and get a clear understanding of what was happening. They kept me waiting for an hour, and even after that had the audacity to inform me the director from the head office who was in the area had declined to meet with me because he was quote-unquote busy. I was upset to high heavens, so I decided to go to their head office in the capital city, a 2-hour flight. The head office was no help and informed me that they had revised their policy and that it was not covered. I asked when the policy was revised. They informed me a month prior. I informed them the surgery was done 5 months prior and we had the documentations. They claimed that it was 12 months retrospective. I inquired why I was not informed of it since this was big news, and I have held policies with them, and they told me that they had informed their large clients and would inform the other clients when the insurances were due for renewal. I demanded to speak to their boss, company vice president, since the CEO was not around, and they boldly told me they had no time for me, and frankly that, in verbatim, "We are a large company and have no time to argue with low-end clients. If you don't like it, you can frankly leave and find a new insurance company." The revenge. If I had been initially upset, I was full-blown mad now. I was livid and filled with rage. In all my years, I may have experienced some disrespect, and I accepted it not to make problems, but this time it went too far. I decided in the heat of the moment to switch everything and be done with them. I flew back home and just plain went to the hospital and settled the bill in full and took the receipt to my employee, who initially insisted that she would do anything to pay me back, but I refused since it was in no way her fault, and I'll be darned if she pays for something that was way out of her control. I had a few days to cool down and talked with my directors. The words still etched in my mind. I asked how long it would take us to switch to another insurance. They went ahead and checked out a few large rivals of the insurance we had and discovered that if we switched, it would take 6 months for the new insurance to provide full coverage. The firm we picked, who I'll call New Insurance, offered us a way better deal to the one we had, and not only comprehensive coverage, dental and optical, they also included mental health coverage, physiotherapy and occupational therapy coverage, rehabilitative services, mobile device acquisition, prosthesis or wheelchairs for some of the disabled employees, smart cards for direct payments and outpatient visits, kind of like a debit card, and a dedicated team of relationship managers. It would cost me a little more, but I didn't really care. The people who dealt with us from our previous insurance, who I'll call Old Insurance, seemed unfazed that I was pulling my company from them since they thought it was just a small business. They looked puzzled when I came in with several people and a few boxes of documents. What they failed to realize was that apart from that one business, which is a restaurant, I have 3 popular bars, a cab company, a hotel resort, cleaning service chain, a building and residential guard service, and several rental buildings in the town and around the country. Their shock was compounded when they were informed by the lawyer just who I am, and the shock, awe, confusion, and panic when they heard my family name was an extremely satisfying sight. Cue the pleading and attempted negotiations and apologies. It was so big that the news reached their head office, who sent not only their director, the one who was apparently too big to see me, but also their chief legal officer, chief financial officer, and president of the company. I somehow also earned a personalized call from their CEO who was abroad. No amount of sweet-talking was changing my mind, and by the end of 6 weeks, we had completely removed ourselves from the old insurance. It was now a waiting game to the beginning of the new insurance coverage, and we really hoped that no one would become unwell by that time, but we were ready just in case. In that waiting time, and after the new insurance commenced, I talked to my friends and my family on one of my holiday visits. My older brother's kids adore me, and the family kind of realized that they were jerks to me and are trying to re-enter my life, and I thought that was that. Aftermath. My friends and family took my words and also pulled their businesses from the insurance to other insurances. The company took such a huge hit, and when lockdown came around and was a big deal, they were barely floating. They went into receivership soon after and were acquired by the insurance I had moved to, who happened to be their greatest rivals. The directors and CEO were given their golden parachutes and resigned, and most of their employees were luckily retained apart from the senior executives, including the ones who told my manager to buzz off. In a cruel twist of irony, the building they were operating on in our town was sold, and if you guessed I purchased it, you would be absolutely correct. I decided to remodel the inside and turn it into a business rental space. All in all, it was a bit of a sweet payback, and wherever they are, I hope those disrespectful guys learned that everyone is human and they are not above anyone, and remember that karma is a cold and heartless jerk. Maintenance guy at senior living center gets revenge on satellite TV companies. Over 200 plus residents emerge victorious. I'm the maintenance director at an independent senior living center. It's pretty much an apartment complex in which you have to be a senior citizen to reside. We provide 3 meals a day, housekeeping, activities, a bus for transportation, and several other amenities to increase the quality of life because more times than not, they will spend the final years of their life here. Our facility is family-owned and oriented. Family members of current employees are encouraged to apply for positions. We have one rule in our employee handbook: ensure resident safety, happiness, and prolongment of life. I take my job very seriously and I take pride in it. I try to go above and beyond to make them all happy. Each resident during the daytime either listens to the radio, plays crossword puzzles, or most of the time watch their favorite TV shows. We do not provide television service. Each resident has to provide it themselves if they choose. Over the last year, there has been a trend of televisions not working in countless units, and when this happens, they are very upset. When I get a work order for a TV, I go and check it out. Most of the time, there's nothing I can do. If the cable isn't cut, everything is plugged in, and there is no obstruction to the satellite signal, it's going to be a software issue. When this happens, I install an air antenna until their regular service is fixed. I call the company and a tech comes out, fixes it, and usually within a couple of hours it stops working again. This is a never-ending cycle of upset residents. Over the course of an entire year, I spoke with several supervisors and tried to schedule for someone to come out and go through the entire property with me to address each issue. They weren't having that. They wanted me to go to each individual unit and have that particular resident call them. This is almost impossible. A lot of them have trouble hearing and discussing complex matters over the telephone, let alone know the 4-digit code and the answer to the secret question. Our resident was out of service for over 60 days, and I demanded they refund or discount this particular resident properly. They ended up only giving her $21 off, which isn't even half of a single month's payment. When I spoke with this particular representative, I told them that wasn't enough, and I would be throwing all of their dishes in the dumpster. This is just the tip of the iceberg. These companies have caused significant property damage to the facility. They've ran the coax in the gutters and down the downspouts, ran cables draped over the sidewalk, which is a tripping hazard, installed dishes in the center of courtyards and wherever is convenient for them. All over the property, cables are strung out on top of the grass for hundreds of feet. They don't bother to bury any cables. I've discussed this numerous times with the owner of the facility over the last year. The last time I spoke with him about it, he gave me the okay to handle the situation and do whatever needed to be done to fix the issue. My options were limited, and the only feasible option I could concoct was using a landline company that didn't need a satellite dish. Well, I have officially finished running new coax to every single unit, and a landline company has come in and installed boxes and services in each resident's apartment. Residents who have previously had to pay a monthly fee for their television service now get their service free of charge. Those that never had service now do. We've saved over 50 residents money each month, and all in total over 200 plus now have television service that is included in their rent without any increase whatsoever. This was revenge for the representative talking to Ms. T in such a negative and rude tone. I couldn't be happier for my residents. Our senior citizens are some of the most precious things we all enjoy. They hold all of our wisdom. Good day. You want to make things fair? I'll show you fair. A couple of weeks ago, my kids and the neighbors decided to have a bake sale. We live in a tourist area with high foot traffic, and the kids made a lot of money. I tell the kids I ought to charge them for the labor. I said I'd help bake, and ingredients so they learn the concept of net gains, but instead I'll donate to their cause, and just to bring me back the money I lent them to make change. I love seeing the kids be entrepreneurial, work so hard, and get so excited at their success. After a couple of hours, the neighbor's son decides he's bored and wants to go home, so he tells my kid, "When you're done, come by and deliver half my money." Mine says, "Hey, that's not fair. If you're leaving, we should split the money now." Mind you, the bulk of their sales was my baking. Neighbor kid gets upset, but my kid sticks to what he said. They split the money and the kid leaves in a huff. My kid comes in a few hours later, having lugged home all the gear and cleaned up, annoyed that the neighbor kid got annoyed at them. Then I got a knock on the door. It's the neighbor's mom, with the kid who's still pouting. Mom's holding a receipt. Mom explains that they purchased a bunch of stuff for the bake sale. It cost a lot of money, and it's not fair that my kid is making money off their stuff, and that they should be compensated for what they purchased. The receipt lists a bunch of items I immediately see they didn't use, like 2 boxes of cereal when they used 1, napkins that I'd ended up providing, but whatever. And never mind that her son went home early and left mine to clean up, and never mind that I'd been churning out batches of cookies all morning. I'm irked that they've taken what was a fun, cheerful day of kids making money hands over fist and shown up at my door making me engage in a super awkward conversation because they assume their kid can't be wrong. So I say, of course, and fetch my receipts. I sit down and, in front of them and out loud, calculate the cost of lemonade and cups used. I calculate the cost of flour, sugar, chocolate chips, vanilla, and butter per batch of cookies multiplied by the number of batches made. I toss in the baking soda for free, so generous. I even subtract the value of leftover cookies. Did I mention I made a lot of cookies? The neighbor kid has to hand over $23. They got pretty quiet all of a sudden. I thanked the lady for making sure things were fair and offered her a plate of cookies to take home. She declined. Am I the jerk? I reported my car missing after my husband took it to attend his brother's wedding. My husband, who's 35, does not have a car. He sold his old car to help pay for his brother's wedding. I did not agree on this, but he had this car before we got together, so it's a shared property. Besides that, I have my own car, so that didn't affect me until my husband started complaining about having to commute to work and hangout places. He tried to get me to let him drive my car several times, but I stood firm and put a boundary, making him understand that my car will never be driven by him. One of the reasons why is because of how bad of a driver he is. His brother lives out of town. My husband asks if he can drive my car to the wedding, but I refused. But not because I'm not invited, another story for another day, but because, like I said, my car is off limits. He threw a fit, calling me unreasonable to let him take public transportation because he can barely stand it for 10 minutes, let alone hours. I said it wasn't my problem, which irritated him, but made him stop arguing about it. The day that he was supposed to travel out of town, I woke up at 10 a.m. and couldn't find my car key. I went outside and I couldn't find my car either. I was beyond upset. I called him, and like I expected, he took it and was on his way to the other town. I lost it and told him I gave him no permission to take it for the whole 5 days and said that if he won't turn around with it and come home, then I'd call the cops and report it missing. His response was, "You wouldn't dare do that, 'cause you know what would happen." I hung up on him, then immediately called the police and told them about my situation. I did not tell them my husband took it because they'd think it's a family dispute and decide to not get involved. I just reported missing. 2 hours later, I got a call from my husband saying he was back in town and was being held at our local police station. I went to the station and talked to the cops. My husband made a scene there, saying over and over again that I gave him permission to take it and said I was acting out of jealousy and spite because he was going to attend an event that I was not invited to. I took my car and went home, but he had to stay a little longer. He came home in the evening and went on a rage fit about how I created an awful situation and almost caused him to miss his brother's wedding. He called me vindictive, bitter, and a lunatic to call the police on him and try to accuse him of stealing my car. He had to leave the same day to be able to get there with his family and decided to extend his stay and still hasn't gotten back yet. Right now, his mom and brother are blasting me for what happened and calling me spiteful. Not the jerk, but I get the feeling that there's a lot more going on here. Your husband sold his car to help pay for his brother's wedding, even though he needed it to commute? Is your husband prone to making bad decisions? And he paid for his brother's wedding, even though you, his wife, were not invited to it? I'm sorry, but what kind of marriage is this? OP. Yeah, he and his brother are very close. I'm on bad terms. Also, we don't talk at all with his brother because he kept accusing me of trying to drive a wedge between him and my husband. He can think whatever he wants, but none of his claims are true. Unfortunately, my husband and his mom think I'm the bad guy here. In my opinion, you should start stashing cash away and documenting everything that you own that is not subject to community property, if you live in a place with community property laws. I don't see this marriage lasting much longer, and your husband has already demonstrated that he will lie to the authorities to get himself out of trouble. It didn't work this time, but you should protect yourself. That's all assuming you're not already consulting a divorce attorney, who can give you much better advice than I, who am definitely not an attorney, could. Everyone sucks here. Why are you even together? Just break up. You both sound like absolute nightmares. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. I know Reddit tells everyone to get divorced, but sometimes, it's kind of warranted. My Karen sister took money from our safe. My little sister, who's 16, has had her fair share of behavior issues throughout the past few years. She doesn't keep up with school, lies, and was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, along with everyone else in our family. Since the beginning of this year, her behavior has gotten worse. She's been frequently lying and doctoring stories, as well as getting in trouble with the law, in and out of the house with zero consequences. A few weeks ago, she had called me and told me, along with everyone else in the family, that she had bought me tickets to my favorite artist's concert in the fall. I obviously questioned it and kept telling her not to lie to me, but she insisted it was true, so I got very excited. 2 weeks later, I noticed that she kept buying very expensive items such as a computer, new shoes, makeup, more electronics, etc. But I figured it was because she got a new job and was making better money. For the more expensive items like the computer, she told me it was a gift from a family member for her birthday, which was the week prior. She even went as far as to fake a phone call with said family member to thank them for such a wonderful gift. While she was having the time of her life, I was on a completely different path. A week before her birthday, my car's engine blew. I should note that I'm a college student who works minimum wage, and it would have been out of my price range to even try to afford a new engine, so the car got towed. I was devastated. My parents and my grandma decided to help me by getting me some money together, about $6,000, and giving it to me to buy a new car. About a week after I noticed my sister was buying these expensive products, I finally found my dream car. My parents and I went to grab the money from our safe to go and buy the car when we realized about $3,000 was missing from the envelopes we put together. My dad immediately checked my little sister's bank account to find a $1,200 deposit via ATM that week. We also found receipts from purchases that she made with the remaining cash. When we confronted my sister, she said she didn't know why she took the money. I was, and still am, devastated that my own blood would steal from me. But my parents, more so my dad, whose sister did the same thing, wants me to forgive her because she's apologized for it. I told him no way, and that she has yet to apologize to me, and that I have no intentions on having her in my life when she's acting like this. My dad says she's going through a tough time and needs our help. So, am I the jerk? Update. I want to add that as soon as my parents found out, we took her to return as much as we could. They were also devastated.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.